Wars aren't always fought with bombs and bullets. The cybersecurity attacks against our nation's water supply over the last few weeks have proven that. Today's episode, there's a little bit of money, a little bit of politics, a little bit of black hat tactics, and a little bit about our nation's water supply. My name is Seth Loe, I'm president of Galactic Advisors. Let's talk about the risky bit.
This is The Risky Bit, part of the ThreatAware Podcast Network. The right decisions under pressure require security leadership that knows which conversations to have first. That's the focus of every episode, delivered with the perspective of an executive who's navigated the same challenges organizations face today, the strategic side of security from the seat where it's decided. Here's your host, Seth Loe.
June 12th, 2026, an Iran-linked group named Handala breaches a California water service. It says it could have shut the water off, but it didn't. And they say this is a warning to the White House and that it's payback for U.S. strikes against a reservoir that cut off water to 20,000 people in Iran. Now, Handala has a history of overstating their capabilities, saying they can do more than they really can. But on July the 23rd, they broadened their threats. And they said they're going to start with water, electricity, and transportation. Well, by July 27th, we learned that 30 plus water systems in the state of Minnesota have been hit. States like Michigan, Georgia, South Dakota were added to the list. And according to the FBI and the EPA, 12 states have been affected by cybersecurity attacks against their water supplies. How are they doing this? Internet-facing PLCs. We'll talk about what a PLC is here in a little bit. They're changing the passwords. They're changing IP addresses. They're locking operators out. In communities, they're experiencing boil order notices. People don't know whether they can trust their water supply or not. Operators have moved from digital to manual operation to make sure that things are flowing the way they're supposed to be. That's all in the news, and you can check that out. But let's talk about the part that matters to a risk manager. First of all, this isn't a problem for you just if you are the manager of a water treatment facility. This is but the first phase of this, if the attackers are to be believed. When 7 states become 12 states in less than 2 weeks, you know we're dealing with one of the broadest campaigns on record. And understand that the same cheap, available anywhere playbook works on PLCs and SCADA networks that span the internet. Handala already renamed those tiers. They said water, electricity, transportation. So it's not a question of if, but when. Let's talk about why water is bigger than just drinking water. We're talking about the utility companies that supply water to businesses where we get the goods and services that we need to operate. We're talking about manufacturing, the water that cools the data centers that are fueling our booming AI economy, and the water that supplies our military bases. Former cyber official Jake Braun said, they can shut down our water to the military. They can throttle our economy, and they can shake our citizens' trust in its own government. Now, for those of you who have been following these sort of war-adjacent cybersecurity attacks, you'll know that there's an irony here behind the fact that they're attacking PLCs. Does anybody remember Stuxnet? It is purported that the CIA developed, and this is an accusation, that the CIA developed a virus that was meant to target the PLC systems that ran centrifuges that Iran was using to enrich uranium for its nuclear program. Stuxnet, though, had a broader effect. Even PLC systems in the United States that shared this architecture got affected by the Stuxnet attacks. So this is a shot across the bow for sure, but it's more than just a plumbing problem here. So what is a PLC and why does it matter? PLCs are programmable logic controllers. These are small, rugged computers that do physical tasks in an environment. So think pumps, valves, motor, pressure systems. These are the muscle of the operation. The operator may sit there at a screen on their dashboard, moving switches and raising meters, but the PLC is the actual hand on the wheel that turns the valve. Most of these PLCs were built decades ago, and they were built for reliability and durability, not security. They were designed to sit on a private network with no outside connections, no internet connections for those networks. So the risk isn't stolen data. It's control of the physical world, flow, pressure, gates on and off, switches on and off, conveyors on and off, all being operated from a keyboard halfway around the world when the attack takes place. If you take control of a PLC, you can flood a station. You can drop the water pressure in a system, causing untreated groundwater to leak into water that we rely on for drinking. You can burn out a pump. These same PLCs that run water systems also run our electrical grid, our train lines, and our factories. So if we follow that escalation ladder from water to electricity, you can see a real threat to brownouts or blackouts during heat waves, to the electrical supply for the businesses that we rely on, the electrical supply that our military relies on. And when we start talking about trains, planes, and automobiles, things get less theoretical and more immediate and physical. So here's my take on this. The risk doesn't just stop with utility infrastructure, as if that wasn't bad enough. These same PLCs are employed across American manufacturing. They have the ability to shut down operations at the job you work at, on the network that you protect, in the business right down the street. That's too big a target for these attackers not to make their way eventually to attacking those systems as well. Why does this same attack keep working? Take a look at Verizon's 2026 report. For the first time in 19 years, the exploitation of system vulnerabilities surpassed the cracking of user passwords as the main way attackers get into systems. That's what's happening here. They're exploiting vulnerabilities in these PLC devices in order to take over function, lock people out of these systems, and this old, outdated equipment, whether it be through negligence, through accidents, mistakes, bad design, or from convenience, have been connected to the public internet. So all the attacker really needs here is a scanner and some patience. They don't have to be geniuses. So what do you do to combat this? If you're a risk manager and you need to react, and you need to react now, what do you need to do? You need to take inventory of your systems. Anything that touches the internet needs to be evaluated. This includes egress, internet connections, backup internet connections, cellular internet connections, wireless connections that can be reached from outside your network. The Internet Intelligence Systems Census shows that 4,100 Rockwell devices are currently exposed on the internet in the United States alone. Cybersecurity organizations all over the place are saying, remove these publicly exposed PLCs now. Get them off of the internet as soon as possible. Audit your systems, audit your networks so you know what's online and what's not. Break the castle and moat philosophy. If you don't know what castle and moat is, that is building a secure perimeter around your network where everything outside your network is untrusted and everything inside your network is trusted. Once an attacker gets into that system, and one example that we have over the last few weeks was a vendor who brought in their own cellular modem in order to be able to do work. No one wrote it down. No one inventoried it. They forgot it was there. The attackers discovered it on a scan, and blammo, they were in the middle of that castle and they had access to anything they wanted. Nobody should be able to roam free, even if they get a foothold in your network. Your IT systems, Your office systems need to be segmented away from these production systems. Production lines that don't need to have access to each other should be completely cut off. Your default position here should be denial of access unless network traffic has a legitimate reason to cross from segment to segment. Next, we close the easy doors. Kill default passwords. Find reused passwords and change them. Get MFA on everything that supports it. Don't rely on IP allow lists and deny lists. They're only as good as the maintenance that you have done on that list. Retire end-of-life PLC controllers before the attackers retire you. So let's talk about backups for a minute. You need backups in place that you can actually trust. That means these backups are offline, inaccessible from production networks. These backups cannot be altered. These backups don't share credentials with the production network that would allow an attacker to compromise one system and then cross over with those credentials and destroy backups. Make sure that you're validating your backups so that you know they're good when the time comes and you need to restore them, and you know that the attacker hasn't gotten into the backups and corrupted them as well. And this means that you have to test before the attackers do. They are out there scanning, they're probing for weaknesses, they've got a playbook ready to exploit any vulnerabilities that they find. Your best bet is professional penetration testing. Get a neutral third-party professional in there to evaluate your systems for you. They have a clear head about these things. They're not thinking, oh yeah, I plugged that. Oh yeah, I fixed that. They are going to act like an attacker acts. They are going to scan your network the same way an attacker would, and they're going to help you find the holes and plug them before the attackers slip through them. If you're in charge of security for one of our nation's critical infrastructure systems, free help is available for you. The EPA offers evaluations. CISA supplies their CSET tool, and Water ISAC has resources that are available to you to help you find and fix these problems. And finally, I want to talk about a problem that has plagued cybersecurity for decades. And it is this idea that you are too small to be targeted. The scans, the probes that these attackers are using have nothing to do with large, medium, or small organizations. They are finding anything that is connected to the internet. They're making a note and they're coming back to exploit it. They don't care if you're a little town. They don't care if you're a rural supplier. They don't care if you are a massive metropolis. If it's connected to the internet, they will find it. They will exploit it. Their goal here, and we have to keep this in mind, this isn't about stealing a few bucks. This isn't about ransomware. At this point, it's about disruption. It's about making the people of the United States fear their government, fear the water that comes through their pipes, and fear for whether or not they're going to have water, electricity, and trains tomorrow. I opened this up by saying wars aren't always fought with bombs and bullets. This one includes attacks against login pages, attacks against a modem that people forgot was there. The front lines isn't overseas. It's not in the Strait of Hormuz. It's in your control network. You don't get to choose whether or not you're going to be a target. The attackers are doing that for you. But you can choose whether you're going to identify these vulnerabilities and you're going to lock the open door before the attacker tries the handle. Now, it's a little self-serving for us, but penetration testing is the solution to this, in addition to the lockdown mechanisms that we talked about. Getting it attacked on a Tuesday by somebody you trust lets you fix the problem on Wednesday. Waiting around to let the attackers find it means probably be the subject of my next episode. So stay sharp, stay tested. This has been The Risky Bit. My name is Seth Loe, President of Galactic Advisors. Thank you for joining me.